I call this House to order. On the motion that this House would grant more votes to the poor, I'm very happy to call upon the Prime Minister to open the case for side proposition.
Okay. The question is in this debate if this solution is gonna solve the problem and gonna reduce the number of people who right now are poor. We think that if you give a group of people who right now are disadvantaged, who right now live in poverty, who right now does not live like the way we think they need to live, we need to give them more power. Because if we give them more power, there is a greater chance that their life will be improved and we make the people of the poor better. What I'm going to speak about today is two things. A, justification. Why they deserve to have more power because of their condition. Second of all, we're going to talk about how it's going to work, how it's going to work, how when all parties, all politicians know that they need their vote to get re-elected, all parties and all kinds of parties gonna act and gonna go and help them. So how it's going to work. So basically we give that if there is a person who is under the limit that we are saying that they are poor, they get 3 voted. The 3 vote, the vote equal 3 vote, then another the person who is not poor, and it's going to affect all kind of democracy, parliament, your city hall, all those kind of things. So, for my phrase, because what they're going to say in opposition, hey, it's not fair, all men are equal, all people are equal, and everybody they have the same vote. So, what we're basically 3 things. First of all, we think that we need to help the people who are weak. If someone is weak right now, we need to help them more than people who is strong. Right now we give those poor people a lot of benefits. We give them money, we give them subsidy, we give them all those kind of things, and because we need to help them, to give them more power. I think right now we see that is not enough. It's not effective enough because we give them the subsidy. Right now we give them more money, we give them more power, we give them more stuff, but they're not growing up. They're not become less poor. So we understand that it's hard for them. They earn a lot less money. They live in more difficult places in the city. More crime in their area, less opportunities, less jobs, lesser school, and all these kinds. So we need to help those who are in need. And we say that they are being supported by the country. The country, the state, and the agency of the state help them more than other people. So they need us. Second of all, we think that who created the situation is the country, because what we're seeing right now is poverty move from generation to generation. Because if you grow up in a poverty neighborhood, you don't have access to good school. Your environment all around you is less better. You're not exposed to crime, as I already said. So we create another generation of we as a society not give them the opportunity to grow up and fulfill themselves. And thirdly, we say that right now the rich have more power from the poor people. Because the reason ABC lobby, we see very big corporation using their lobby, losing the money to advertise, to do stuff, to reduce the taxes for company and use the lobby and use the money when the poverty does not have this access to these resources of money, so they can influence the politicians. So we have the very rich people who are influenced through their money, and the poor people are suffering from that. And furthermore, we say that right now, if you want to go to politics, if you want to try to reach parliament and bring the change, you have to have the social strength. You have to have enough money to do so. Because you are afraid about your job, and you're afraid about your mortgage, and your food for your children. You're not going to have the race because maybe you're not going to elect them, and you don't have the hope. You don't believe it. You can do it. So how it's going to work? What we're saying that right now, when politicians, there is no all the parties look for poor people. They say that there is parties who say yes, we want to reduce taxes. We are approaching to the wealthiest, more wealthy people, the middle class. The middle class, which are the majority, and we don't care about the poor. What is going to happen right now? That the poor is matter. The poor have more votes, and we think that they can be the balance between parties when it comes to left or right, or the different parties when it comes to running for mayor of a city. It's going to make the difference. Which side is going to help the poor? So in your election, you're gonna look for that. You're gonna expose to their problem. You're gonna go to their neighborhood and make promises. Then you make promises that you're gonna invent in the school. Not only give them subsidy, because all poor want to go to have more opportunity to have a better life. So you have to make some promises. You're gonna help. You have to care about what if they're going to re-elect you next time. Because if you don't make these promises, if you like go in the election as a politician, you say, hey, I'm going to improve your school. I'm going to give more money for things that make you have a better life, and you don't gonna do it. And they're not gonna re-elect you. So right now, their vote don't really matter because the people who are poor are not the majority of people who have not had enough influence in the system. There is enough politician with enough money, with enough lobby to ignore their thought or ignore their feeling. Their feeling and their needs. And right now, all politicians are going to need their vote. And when you need your vote, you have to make your promise. I agree that all opposition agree with me because they didn't ask any PY. Thank you very much. Yes, Abe?
Yes, your entire case seems to me that people need them to give them lots of presents. But we think that the poor people don't necessarily need all these handouts. They need tough changes.
I agree. I don't think they need tough changes. I don't know what your changes mean. I think that they need more invested in their school. I think that they need more invested in their police force. I think that they need more invested in their environment. Right now, this investment is not exist because people don't care about their top, don't care about the votes because of that are like 30% of the population, and people don't really care about them. Alright, not all parties care about them. Right? In our situation, all parties, all politicians, to get elected, they need the vote of. We need the vote of the poor people. We think that when you need those people, when you have to make sure that your promises that you give when you elected, when you try to elect to the office, you have to make sure that those promises happen because afterwards they're not going to re-elect you. They're going to have the advantage. They think that we want more education, more security, and more jobs. Thank you very much.
We thank the gentleman very much for his speech, and now to open the case for the opposition, we're very happy to call upon the leader of the opposition.
Okay. Basically, in my case, I'm going to show you why this proposal is going to make the situation for poor people even worse, why they're going to remain and even be entrenched in this cycle of poverty. I'm going to show you this in 2 points. First of all, why is the cycle of poverty going to get bigger and bigger over time? And the second point is going to be, who do we actually allow to vote and why? And that's going to answer a lot of these issues with the rich people over the poor people power, etc. Okay, but first of all, 2 points of rebuttal. He gave us a justification. He told us that, look, the state is responsible and we need to help those who are weak and we don't help them enough. We say, yes, we have a responsibility towards them, and that's why we have welfare and other programs. We say that it's fine to just make these programs bigger, make more investment in that area, and we say the proposal won't get all of that. The only thing it will get is more populist proposal, more like nationalism, more religion, stuff like that, that doesn't really actually help people move away from the cycle of poverty. Second point of rebuttal, we heard that the rich have more power, they have more influence, well, and somehow politicians are the rich people. We say, yes, this proposal won't change this situation. Rich people will always have influence influence, they will always have, they will always be the politicians, because as you said, you need money in order to run for politics. I'm going to show you in my second point, my first point, the incentives and the calculations that a politician does when trying to persuade people to vote for him, and I'm going to show you why it's not going to really help these poor people, why they won't get more education, they won't get more welfare. Okay, so I'm moving on to my point. First point, why it's going to create a bigger cycle of poverty. What motivates a politician? Well, he wants to get elected again and again and again. We know that. We know that when he knows that there's a big electorate of people, a big amount of people who are available for him to vote for him, and that their voices matter twice as much, he will invest his time in playing into that. And what will he do? Yes, and Prime Minister agreed. He will make big promises, but the big promises are not going to be things that are easy, that are going to help poor people. Because why? He wants them to stay poor. He wants them to keep voting for him. He wants to be able to make this cycle bigger and bigger, so that the electorate of people who are available for him will be bigger. So that's why he doesn't really have real incentive to move people away from this situation, but keep people in it and make their situation worse. So how does he do that? How does he make them vote for him without really helping them? He's going to do things and suggest things that plead to their national feelings, for example. Like we see in Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood came to the people and said, yes, we're all Muslims, we're all brothers, and they didn't really help the economy, they didn't really help change things, they didn't really change education, for example. We know that, for example, in Greece, we see a lot of racism and a lot of nationalism against immigrants, for example. These parties like the Golden Dawn go directly to the core of poor people and try to get their vote and don't really help the poor people get more educated or get jobs and other things like that. They go to the easy answers. Why? Because when you're poor, when you're desperate, it's easy to go to your emotion. It's easy to plead to your sense of desperation, and that's why it's easy for these politicians to keep people poor, for them to get more votes, and to still continue to get more votes without really helping them. What does help poor people? Education, more workplaces, we agree, but we think that these are things that take time to create. The reforms in these areas are very hard to reach, especially in a short amount of time. That's why politicians will put all the focus and all the pressure on very easy to say things like populist things that don't really change the society's structure and don't really give poor people a chance. That's why we see that politicians have an incentive to create more and more people within this cycle of poverty, and that's why they will have more voters, and that's why the situation for poor people won't improve, it will just get worse. Yeah.
Ada, the Golden Dome is not the only party in Greece. We want the big, moderate parties to go interest in those group of people and help them in moderate way.
Yes, they're not the only party in Greece, but we see that reaching to these populist ideas is very easy for them, and that's why a lot of people voted for them in the last election. Same with Muslim Brotherhood. We think that all parties try to get them, but it's easier for these extremist and racist groups to get the votes because people are so desperate and so hopeless. Moving on to my second point, who do we allow to vote? The whole idea of the government is who is influenced from decisions of government. And we agree, you should allow people who are influenced by these decisions to vote. But we say that rich people are influenced as well. If you say you want more welfare for poor people, then that means for all other people, they have to pay more taxes. They have to give more from themselves. That's why we say anyone is influenced by these decisions of government. It's not okay to give one group power over the others because they are all influenced, and it's basically unfair to benefit one group over other groups because they are all influenced and they all are challenged by these ideas. That's why we call you to oppose.
We thank the lady very much for her speech, and we are now delighted to call upon the Deputy Prime Minister.
Our problem is that the system today has been hijacked by the rich. Opposition talked with us about welfare. Our problem is that while the US government was okay with giving billions and billions of dollars to bailing out the banks, they weren't okay with giving any unemployment benefits to the millions of Americans who wanted to find a job but couldn't find a job because the wealthy outsourced their jobs to China. We want to give power back to the poor. That is our problem today. I'm going to give you 3 points. Number 1, legitimacy. Legitimacy, it was a boring phrase, so I repeated it 3 times so you will remember. Number 2, we're going to talk about making Republicans care about the poor too. Republicans being AKA all parties. And number 3, we're going to talk about how to kill the extreme parties, making the poor trust in the system again in motherland. Okay, but before that, 2 points of rebuttal. Okay, so the first thing we got from opposition was that, listen, we don't want the poor to have a lot of votes because they vote for crazy people like the Golden Dawn. Do you know why they vote for the Golden Dawn today? Because the old Golden Dawn in today's system is the only one that gives a damn about them. The Golden Dawn goes to the poor societies and they help them, they give them food kitchens, they help them with daycare. What we're trying to do is make the big parties, the moderate parties, care about these poor people too. And in effect, what we want to do is to lure the poor people back into the moderate parties, and that will make our society all harmonized and happy. Okay. That second point of rebuttal, they gave us this whole conspiracy theory where the government's going to want you and going to make you stay poor because they want your vote. Well, we say, no, they can't really do that because if they make promises to the poor and then don't act upon them, the poor won't help them out. And if you get to a point where the government makes all these laws to really help the poor and there will only be a small number of poor people, then the fact that they have 3 votes won't make a big difference, okay? And so they're not going to have this stranglehold anyway. But right now we want the poor people to have a stranglehold on the rich because we feel like they've they've had injustice done to them in the past few decades. So the first point, back to the first point of legitimacy, okay? Because we were scared that Yair with his moral stuff will come up with it, and they also talked about that too. Okay, listen, the past few decades have been very, very nice to the rich, okay? The whole globalization market has allowed the rich to become disproportionately richer because now they have billions and billions of more people to cater to. You have companies like IBM that make 2/3 of their wealth outside the U.S. Then obviously they can't have the U.S.'s best interests at heart if they're making most of their money in other countries. What about the poor though? The poor are stuck in their country. They do care about it, and they're the ones who have been harmed by globalization when all the jobs are outsourced. So we say the past few decades have definitely helped the rich, but they haven't helped the poor as much. What we want to do is now reward the poor, make it their decade, okay? And so that's why we think this is legitimate, especially given what Matan told you, that the rich really do have such a big influence on elections, with their media, with buying, with telling candidates, we'll give you money, and then go to our laws even if they go against the poor. We don't want welfare. We don't want to give insurance. We want to combat the money of the rich with the numbers of the poor, and that's what we're trying to do. Okay, the second point. Okay, no, the second point, making Republicans care about the poor too. Listen, we have a big problem when only certain parties care about the poor, because then the parties, whether it be in Europe, with the coalitions, or in America with a two-state party system, they can't pass laws because some of the parties want to help the poor and the others don't. And then what you get is what happens in America, where Obama, who's Democratic and cares about the poor, wants to pass a health care law, wants to help the poor, but the House of Congress, which is controlled by the Republicans who only care about the wealthy, say, no way, Jose, that's not going to happen. And so you end up with this little meager health care plan that doesn't really help anyone. What we want to happen is that Republicans will not be able to be voted in anymore unless they care about the poor. Nowadays, Republicans say, listen, there's enough well-to-do people that we don't need them, we don't care. We want that to stop. We want Republicans to be forced to care about the poor. We want the House of Congress and the President and the Senate to work together to pass real effective laws that help the poor, not these little negotiative things that are just symbolic. Second half.
Isn't the question of whether or not it's legitimate to have more taxation on the rich or less taxation on the rich something the people in general should decide, not just the poor?
No, again, because the system we said has been screwed by the rich, because up till now, the people who control the government are the rich. When the government really reflects the desires of the poor, who are the most vulnerable in society, who aren't heard, then we can care about a legitimate decision, but we say, no, this isn't okay. The government now is more of a voice for the rich, and so we don't care so much what they think. Okay, third point, killing the extreme parties. Okay, so today, the poor feel that people aren't helping them. Again, there was the example where poor can't even get unemployment benefits or welfare, but they see the banks getting all the bailouts. They see the government's caring about them, and we see that there's a lower turnout in poor votes because they really feel that the system is against them. Okay, and then what happens? They really do go to the extreme parties like the Golden Dawn because they're the only ones who give them an ear. They're the only ones who feel that they care. Now, we said that if we're making 3 votes per poor person, then all parties are going to start caring, and all parties are going to start to cater to them. Now, why is that so important? Because when you lure in the poor people, into the more moderate parties, then they start taking more moderate stances. Now they associate themselves with a party that's not anti-immigration, with a party that's not anti-Muslim, with a party that sees that is much more encompassing of society as a whole, and so they feel more part of a society. And what does that lead to? That leads to more harmony between the people, different sectors in society, which is really, really important because the violence that we see increasing in Europe and this anger, like the riots that were in the UK a year ago, that's because people feel like they're screwed over. They feel that the system doesn't care. We want people to feel that the government and the country is for them and that they do have a better chance. We also think that, especially in tough times like these, if you want the poor to suffer a batter, like in Greece where, damn it. What?
Recession.
Okay, no, that's not the word. Okay, anyway, whatever. Okay, we feel that, sorry. We feel that the poor, when they have to take hits, we want them to accept the laws that are dictated to them. If they feel that the laws are made by the rich, made by people that don't care about them, they're much more likely to reject these laws. We want these people to accept what happens to them. So what happens? We want to kill the extreme parties. We want to give power back to the poor because we think that globalization has really helped the rich, and all the laws, super PAC laws, have helped them hijack the system, and for all of that reason, because we want to help the poor have better lives.
We thank the lady very much for her speech, and we're now delighted to call upon the Deputy Leader of the Opposition to conclude the first half of the debate.
Okay, so I want to take 2 points of rebuttal and one main point. The class war that will happen because of the new situation. The first point of rebuttal is the politicians will make the poor vote them and with big promises, but these promises will only partly made. So the poor still will vote for the people that they elected because they started and maybe they think they they do something for them, but actually in the bottom line these people stay poor. These people will see half promises made and half promises in fact. And also, even if the poor will have more power and will decide how the rich people will pay taxes and things like this, the rich people will not want to stay here because the industry and all the economy is based on their money. Their money is helping our economy. They're making workplaces. They're making. They pay more taxes, and if these people will not stay, if it will not good for these people to stay here, they will go to other countries. They will go to China or other place. So, in fact, in this situation, the poor will have less places to work in. They will stay at home and live on the welfare that we give them. Okay, and now to my point. The poor people today getting support from their country. Also, being poor today is making other people to feel solidarity for you. Other people is volunteers in places like soap kitchens and in places like this. They help these poor people. Even the country help the poor people. These other people that see the poor want to help them too because they see their situation are really, really bad. Now, if we will give the poor people, more votes, this will make antagonism to them because people will start to think, oh, he affects more than me, why he needs me, why these people need my help, the country helping him enough. So the country will not help him because they want to keep them poor, and also other people won't help him because they think the country helps him. Yes.
Okay, J.K. Rowling is a billionaire, but she decided to stay in the UK because that's her homeland. Considering that we're passing this law in all Western liberal democracies, we don't think that many rich people will really decide to move to China and leave their home where they want to raise their kids.
They not need to leave their home. Their money can be in other place. I mean, they can live in the UK and their industry can be in China or another place. They don't have to employ Americans or natives for make their products. Okay. So I am trying to go back to my main point. It will make a class war. And what I mean, the people that are not poor will look on the poor people as just a second. See why.
Okay. A common feeling among the poor is a feeling of lack of influence, despair. That is why they have given up, and that is why they are often voting to extremist parties, because the feeling of despair and that they don't have the power to influence. Do you agree?
No, I don't agree. Because I think that today parties are caring about the poor too. And the people vote to extremist parties not only because they're poor. They vote to extremist parties because maybe their ideas is extremist too, and maybe they agree with these parties. We cannot make these people vote only for big parties that we want. Maybe these extremist parties have very good ideas and we don't see it. Yes, please.
We think that when you have some parties that don't care about the poor, then coalitions can't gather together to pass laws for the poor. That's why we want all parties to care about the poor, to work together for their benefit.
Okay, but we need to remember that there is parties today that are caring for the poor, and we want to all the parts of the society to be in the government. So what I talk to you about is that the people will help, will make these people even more poor because of the out of solidarity, and it will make a class war between the poor people and the other normal people that are not poor. Thank you very much.